Hey everyone, my name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at some malicious compliance stories, so sit back, relax and enjoy. Sure, don't listen to the guys who do this job for a living. Years ago, I used to work as a medical biller for a surgery center. The administrator who ran the place knew that I worked construction with my father, as well on my off times doing remodeling and building houses. As such, she commissioned us to do some work for her at her personal home. It was small projects really. Installing a new garbage disposal, installing a new mailbox, installing a projector in the ceiling, easy stuff. Now, before I get into the main part of this story, I must tell you, she was very stingy with money. We had an autoclave that needed servicing at work, and she refused to pay for the worker's travel time of 2 hours for a 30-minute job. She refused to pay a lot of the medical equipment bills until she was threatened with collection notices or refusal to send any future items. She even told us not to waste patient bans who were no-shows, and instead place another patient sticker over the old ones, which could be a HIPAA violation, but she didn't care. This is important to know. One day, she came to me and asked if we could take a look at her flooring in her exercise room. She had said the water heater had busted, and as a result from sitting too long, her flooring was swollen from being waterlogged. So my dad and I went over there to assess the situation, and determined that we could do the job for a total of $400 plus material. We weren't out to strike it rich, but really to help the community by providing quality service at low rates. She was happy with the price and told us she would pick out the new wood she wanted laid down. We told her she would need about 100 slats for the repair we were going to do, as well as new plywood for the base. She seemed okay with that. She went to Los Angeles for one weekend and came back with the material that she wanted to use for the flooring. Only she had about 30 of the requested 100 to do the job properly. On top of that, she did not think that she needed to get a new sheet of plywood. We informed her that the old plywood was moldy, swollen, and would cause problems down the road. She eventually agreed to purchase the plywood replacement, but she was not going to purchase more wooden slats. Instead, she demanded that we use most of what was already there, yes, the swollen pieces, but to tear up the slats in the little alcove that was not hit with water damage and place the damaged ones there. We did everything we could to convince her this was a bad idea. We told her that wood doesn't magically shrink when it dries out. We told her that joining the swollen pieces with non-swollen pieces would be near impossible. We told her that the moisture would invite more trouble down the road and provide an uneven floor setting. She was having none of it. She knew better and did not want to spend more than she already had. So, we went to work. We tore up the old pieces, saved the best ones, and started laying down the new pieces first. Then we tore up the pieces in the alcove and matched them with the new pieces too. Per her instructions, we placed the least damaged slats in the alcove, doing everything we could to make it look presentable. Lo and behold though, it was all uneven. It raised in spots, it had gaps in spots, it didn't fit quite right. But that's what she wanted done, and that's what she was going to get. Despite our best efforts, we were absolutely shocked when she said that the flooring looked horrible, despite us telling her that it would look horrible with the damaged slats. Okay, no, we really weren't shocked at all. She demanded that we tear up the floor again and fix it right away. We told her, sure, but you'll have to pay us another $400, plus get the other slats that we requested. She got livid, said we were horrible people, and refused to continue on. The next day, I quit the job after she came in and badmouthed my dad in front of my coworkers. But I heard from my coworkers that she had to hire someone else to do the job, and it cost her $1,200 for the labor alone, plus another $400 in wooden slats. All because she was so certain she knew better than the guys who have been doing the work for years. I can understand some people thinking they might be getting finessed, like buying too many things and thinking they know better, but if you ask, oh, can you show me proof that you need 100 and then I'll buy 100, that would be better than just refusing, cause yeah, it's not gonna work. How my father put my brother in hospital because I did what he told me to do. For a bit of a backstory, my family is a bit of a special case. My younger brother, henceforth called Ginger, was diagnosed with autoimmune diabetes, type 1, at the age of 4. This was just over a decade ago. When my father was trained to manage his diabetes, he let his ego get the better of him and denied my mother and myself access to the free training the endocrine team were offering to the family to keep my brother alive. His mentality, I think, was a too many chefs in the kitchen approach, but I think in this case it was wrong. Fast forward to today, I live with my mother and he lives with my father. Most of us don't get along. Specifically, anything to do with my father ends in a mess. Story for another sub. My brother came over to visit a few days ago. While he was here, my father sent me a number of messages. I'll spare you the uncut version and give you the finer points. He wanted me to remind my brother to take his insulin, bring my brother home by 10 AM Monday no matter what, and to not bother him if my brother's diabetes is acting up, such as ketoacidosis, low glucose levels, etc. Mind you, I'm not trained to deal with his diabetes, so I trust that my brother's 14 years of having this condition has taught him what the correct course of action is for certain things. In addition, my father's old words, "His diabetes isn't your business, screw off," still ring in my ears to this day. So naturally, I decide to comply as maliciously as possible, while keeping my brother alive. My brother forgot to take his late night insulin on Saturday and Sunday, despite me reminding him. From what I understand, this causes him to have insanely high glucose readings during the night and into the early morning, which in turn causes ketoacidosis. The insulin he is supposed to take is slow acting and keters out after about 8 hours, designed to get him through the night. Naturally, he wakes up at 9 AM vomiting. Normally, I'd contact my father for how to treat this, but seeing as I'm not to disturb him, I instead ask my brother what he needs me to do. "Can you prepare a glass of lemonade and mix in a spoonful of sugar?" Pro tip for anyone who has a diabetic relative. This is the very last thing you want to ever give a diabetic, especially for ketoacidosis. But alas, I give him this because hindsight is 20/20. He gets about halfway through it before he's spewing it back up. At this point, I have to get him in the car and back home to make the 10 AM drop-off time. So I get him in the car with a bath bag and head over to my father's place. When I get there, Ginger is almost completely passed out. My father sees this, he met us at the driveway and freaks out, starts screaming at me and calls an ambulance. When they arrive, I'm asked what he has had and what insulin he's taken. Paramedics are PM1 through 3. "What did he have for dinner last night?" Mashed potato, grilled lamb, and assorted vegetables. "And how about his insulin?" "I don't know." For him to be like this, he had to have missed a lot of his insulin. Do you know what the last amount of insulin he had was? "I don't know. I'm not sure. Is it like a pill he takes?" "A pill? Not for his diabetes. It would be a syringe or a pen. What insulins does he normally take?" You'll have to ask my father. He was trained about all this and refused to train me. Really? Do you mind if we have a word with your father in private? Sure, go ahead. I went and checked on Ginger while they spoke to my father in the house. My brother was given morphine for the stomach pains he was dealing with and some fast-acting insulin to try and combat the effects of the ketoacidosis, but was in the ambulance ready to be taken away. When the paramedics came back, my father looked more defeated than ever. Apparently he'd been lectured hard in there over not training me or my mother, because the paramedics gave me a card with a number to call and basically ordered me to organize diabetes training ASAP. The ambulance bill was put in my father's name. That cost him a few $100s. For anyone concerned, my brother is still in hospital and they have had him on saline and insulin IV. He will be fine. He can't get any worse under the hospital's care, and I'm getting the training done early in the new year. That is crazy to think that this father was so egotistical he didn't want anyone else to learn how to deal with the diabetes. Like, that's such a stupid thing to be egotistical about. Taking advantage of someone on his last day in the military? See how that goes for you. This happened to my dad a long time ago, but he loves to tell us the story. My dad was literally working the last day of his enlistment in the Navy. He worked in communications, but his supervisor decided to get some manual labor out of him on his last day by making my dad put down new tile in one of the mess halls. Since it was a direct order, he had to comply and do the job. He carefully laid down perfectly spaced tiles in the entire room. It took him the rest of the day, but he made sure that it was as perfectly lined up as humanly possible. Supervisor looks in the room, approves the job, closes the door, and tells him he can go home. What he didn't realize is that my dad used absolutely no glue of any kind. I don't know what happened the next day when someone actually discovers what he did, but I am sure it didn't go well for the supervisor. He never heard anything about it, but was planning to play dumb and say he didn't know it needed glue. After all, it was a job he was never trained for. And this was in the US in the 1970s. Hey, I mean, he did what he told him. He told him to put some tiles down and he put them down. He never said anything about gluing. You want photos? You'll get photos. Although I am, number 1, 21 years old, number 2, very sheltered within my church youth groups and fellowships, number 3, have always been totally transparent with my parents about all the major events in my life, perhaps to my detriment, number 4, have never been to a house party or come home drunk ever, and 5, have always come home within curfew. My parents, particularly my mother, believes I am not trustworthy of any independence in my life. Today, I told my parents I would be attending a party without letting them know a few days beforehand. Mum was already ticked at me for the past few days because Dad bought me a car. It's a requirement for my university program, unfortunately, and she wanted me to Uber everywhere. Which is not possible because giving Uber my clients' addresses violates client confidentiality. She was screaming all the way up until my ride arrived, accusing me of hating my family, demanding I stay home, and then she lurked by the door trying to glimpse who the driver was. Half an hour later, she, through my dad, texts me to send her photos of the party I'm going to. Mind you, it's just a small gathering. This makes me laugh and infuriates me. I have never done anything that is worthy of her suspicious scrutiny, believe me. I have never given her any reason not to trust me, always updating her on everyone I've dated, every gathering I've attended, every friend I've spoken to that day. But you know what? Dear Mummy asked for photos, so I gave her photos. Photos upon photos. photos of every inch of the party, dozens of photos. Photos of the clock, of the appetizers, photos of people's socks, photos of the fridge, of the bathroom, of myself in the bathroom. I must have sent them 30 individual photos, and more to come, believe me. Someone moved, Mummy was updated. She asked for photos, so... That's such a narcissistic and toxic relationship that they're in. That person really needs to get out of it, in my opinion. Obviously, it's not me to say, but I would try and get out of that in some way. It seems very toxic. Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to see more videos like it, then click on screen right now. And if you never want to miss out on a video, then hit subscribe. But I will see you all very soon.